Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Alicia for those of you who might be new here. If you are new, before you watch this video, I would actually recommend that you watch the two videos just prior to this one. This video is going to talk about all the things I learned on my two shakedown hikes that I've done so far to prepare for the Appalachian Trail. And it might make more sense to you if you actually go back and watch those two videos. So the first one is a shakedown I did with my husband in Shenandoah National Park a little over a month ago, I think it was now. And the second one was a shakedown I did, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago with a fellow 2022 Appalachian Trail thru hiker that I met on social media. His name is Trailhead Justin. He and I went to the Dolly Sods wilderness in West Virginia and did a one-night cold weather shakedown in like mid 20-degree temperatures and snow. That was quite interesting. So I would recommend that you go back and watch those two videos before you sit down and watch this one, and then come back to this one and watch it and see what I learned. First of all, I want to say ignore the mess that is behind me. This is the result of my backpack right there just exploding when I got home from my Dolly Sods shakedown a few weekends ago to, air everything out and dry. And I have not cleaned it up, much to my husband's dismay. Maybe I'll clean it up after this video, but let's be honest, I probably won't. But yeah, before I jump in and talk about the things that I learned on my shakedowns, for those of you who have seen on my community tab, I actually got a new tattoo recently, and I'm talking about it because it's related to one of the things I'm most worried about mentally for me and emotionally on the trail. So for those of you who know me personally, you know that I love my dogs so much. I'm going to be that person. They're my babies. And honestly, that's one of the things I'm most worried about getting through mentally and emotionally is missing them when I'm on trail. So one of the ways that I'm trying to combat that, and I don't know if it's gonna help or not, but hey, if it doesn't, that's okay. I got a cool tattoo out of it, is I got a tattoo of their faces on my forearm, so whenever I'm missing them, I can just look down at my arm and smile and be reminded of them, and yeah, just hopefully get through any struggles that I might be facing with missing them. So I'll show you real quickly what that tattoo looks like. So here it is. This is my dog Declan. He's actually sitting behind me right there. He's a mama's boy, Velcro dog. And then this is my other dog, Jovi. She's upstairs. She's more of an independent girl. She's just taking a nap on the couch. So yeah, it's a really good tattoo. I got it about 3 weeks ago. For those of you who are in the Pennsylvania area, specifically southeastern Pennsylvania, this was done by Lauren Monfort in Allentown, Pennsylvania at Iron Thorn Tattoo. So I'll put her Instagram handle down here at the bottom so you can check her out if you are in the market for a new tattoo artist. All right, so I'm just going to jump right in with the things that I learned. First, I'll go through the things I learned in my Shenandoah shakedown, and then I'll hop right into things I learned on my Dolly Sods shakedown. So without further ado, here are my lessons learned on my shakedown hikes. So the very first thing that I want to address is my raincoat system. So I got my first experience using this piece of gear in the Shenandoah shakedown. If you watched that video, you know that it was kind of rainy and misty pretty much the whole time. So it was the first time that I used this particular piece of gear. If you've watched my gear video, you know that I have the Paca raincoat / pack cover combo. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, I do have it right here. It's currently all tucked away into its pack cover shape. So essentially this is a pack cover that goes over your pack, and then you can actually pull out the raincoat while you're hiking without having to take your pack off to put a raincoat on. So it was kind of cool in that regard, and that's, one of the pros that I learned about this Paca product is that it was really nice to just be able to take off my raincoat and put on my raincoat while I was hiking or just standing there taking a break without having to take my pack off to dig a raincoat out. So it was really great in that regard. However, that was kind of the only pro. Con wise, one of the big things is I got the small of this, and I mean, I'm not like a super small person. I'm short, but I'm not super petite, and I was swimming in it. Like, it was just so baggy and not very flattering at all. And like, I'm not trying to say that being out on trail is a fashion show or anything like that, but I just didn't feel comfortable in it. I didn't feel that it was very conducive to hiking. Like, it was just very baggy, and I was worried that I was going to get stuck in it, like caught up in it somehow, like an elbow or a knee or something like that. So there's that. And then the second con that I never actually even thought of, I actually saw a guy, Andrew, talk about this in the 2022 Appalachian Trail Facebook group, is that if you have this PACA system, you can only ever have your pack covered or your body covered, because it's a 2-in-1 type thing. You can't, like, if you get to camp and it's just pouring rain and you have it on over your pack and you're wearing it, you have to take the whole thing off to get your pack off and to dig your tent out of your pack. So, you know, if it's pouring rain and you get to camp, you're kind of stuck having to get drenched for a short period of time before you can get your until you can get your pack off and put the raincoat back on without your pack. So, I mean, it wasn't pouring rain when I did the Shenandoah Shakedown, but it did bring awareness to that fact that it is kind of a real issue. It's also like 14 ounces, this PACA system. My pack right here is the Light AF 40-liter curve, and technically it doesn't need a pack cover. Like, it's pretty waterproof, especially with a pack liner inside. So this 14 ounces essentially just to have as a raincoat is kind of a lot of weight. So I've been debating the last few weeks what to do. Do I want to swap it out with a different raincoat and eliminate the pack cover altogether? And ultimately, I'm here to tell you that the answer to that is yes. That's actually the one major change that I've made from this Shakedown hike experience is I opted to forego this PACA, and I purchased actually on Black Friday the Enlightened Equipment Visp raincoat, which I want to say is only like 6 ounces. So compare that to the 14 ounces of this PACA, and I'm cutting out quite a bit of weight. So it hasn't come in yet. Obviously, I just ordered it on Black Friday. Heard really good things about Enlightened Equipment raincoats, so I have no doubt in my mind that this is going to work well for me on the trail. All right, the second thing that I learned on my Shenandoah Shakedown is it's a lot harder to set up my tent in the rain than I thought it would be. And honestly, that was just because I was rushing and I just wanted to get it up and get inside. But I learned that I need to be a little bit more patient, especially while I'm getting used to getting this tent set up efficiently, and I just need to be a little bit more patient to make sure I get a really good pitch of the tent before I get inside. Otherwise, I'll be out there making adjustments instead of just getting it all done and up properly the first try. All right, the next thing I learned on the Shakedown is actually kind of embarrassing. I learned that if I'm going to like put things in the outside elastic straps of my pack, so I have like elastic crisscross straps in front of the mesh pocket on the front of my pack, and I always had in my head that I would, you know, like drape wet socks or wet clothing or my wet tent through those elastic straps while I hike to dry out. And I did that with my wet socks, and I just draped them over the elastic and hoped, for some reason, I hoped that they would just stay with no element of security. And what do you know? I lost a sock at some point on day 2 of that Shakedown. It just fell out of the elastic on my strap somewhere, and I didn't notice it until who knows how long later that I only had 1 sock left on the outside of my pack drying. So I've realized that if I'm going to do that, I need to have some sort of way to attach the items to the elastic. So I think I'm going to get some of those like black mini binder clips to kind of keep attached to a carabiner or something on the outside of my pack. That way I can clip a sock in them and, you know, or whatever, and ensure that I'm not going to drop a sock while I'm hiking, trying to dry it out. All right, the next thing that I learned is actually about my rain pants. So I have just a cheap pair of no-name brand name rain pants that I got from Amazon. They're by Little Donkey. I'd never heard of them, but they were cheap and on Amazon and had good reviews, so I thought I'd give them a shot. They were great, first of all, at keeping me warm and keeping me dry. And, you know, they're not those just baggy garbage bag looking rain pants. They actually, like, you know, were fitted and fit well. But the one con that I discovered is that if I'm wearing the rain pants, I can't easily take them off if I want to take them off. There's no zippers at the ankles, so they don't fit over my shoes. If I'm wearing my hiking shoes, I would have to take my shoes off to get my rain pants off, which might not be that big of a deal. I don't think I'm going to switch them out. I think I'm just going to keep them. And if it ends up being such a nuisance that I can't handle it, then I'll swap those out on trail. But for now, I'm sticking with them. It's just something that I noted as a potential issue. But like I said, for now, I don't think it's a deal breaker. All right, the next thing I learned is don't filter my water inside of my tent. For those of you that watched the Shenandoah Shakedown video, you probably know that I dumped water all over my sleeping bag inside my tent when I was trying to filter it. It wasn't a big deal because it wasn't that cold and I didn't dump that much of it and it dried out pretty well. But it could be an issue, you know, if it was colder or I dumped more water out. So I learned to not filter my water in my tent to avoid that. All right, those are the major things that I learned in my Shenandoah Shakedown hike. So I'm going to move on now to the Dolly Sods hike, which those of you who watch the videos, you know that was a much colder experience. We had to walk through some streams in the 20-degree temperatures. And yeah, I'm just going to start listing those things out. All right, so speaking of crossing water in cold temperatures, so obviously my husband and I crossed a lot of deep streams on the Shenandoah Shakedown and it was fine. We got wet. My shoes were wet the next morning, but it wasn't a big deal because it wasn't super cold. But on the Dolly Sods Shakedown, like I said, it was like low 30s, upper 20s when we crossed through these streams, and it got down to the mid to low 20s overnight. And you know, that was pretty risky for us to do, to cross those streams while wearing our shoes and socks. The smart thing in hindsight to do would have been to take off our shoes and socks and cross the stream since it was so cold. Normally I don't mind wearing my shoes in the water because they, you know, my feet don't get cold, they dry out for the most part. And it's not a big deal, but when it is cold like that, it can be a big deal, and it actually contributed to our shoes freezing overnight and having to put our feet into frozen wet shoes in the morning. So it was kind of a big deal and not necessarily the smartest thing to do, looking back on now. So, you know, and I think our feet would have gotten wet and cold anyway because of the snow on the ground while we were hiking. You know, even after the stream crossings, when we were just hiking regularly, my feet were getting wet periodically from the snow coming in through the mesh on the top of my trail runners. So for the AT, at least for the start and maybe the first month or two, I decided to invest in a pair of waterproof socks. So I asked for these for Christmas from my mom, and I'm getting a pair of like the cold weather sealskins waterproof socks to bring with me on trail, to wear when I'm hiking through snowy conditions. That will help keep my feet a little bit drier, I think. I'm still going to abide by the take my shoes and socks off if I'm legitimately trying to cross a stream scenario. But you know, just hiking in snow to prevent my feet from getting wet and cold, I'm going to use the waterproof socks. A second thing I learned on the Dolly Sods hike is that hand warmers have an expiration date, and when they have an expiration date, they mean it. So I brought hand and foot warmers with me on the trip because I knew it was supposed to be cold, and I thought, you know, I'll have the hand warmers in case I'm just miserable overnight to throw in my sleeping bag with me and hold on to. And I did attempt to use them just to try to warm myself up a little bit before bed. And upon inspection of the packaging, when they weren't getting warm, I realized that they expired in 2014. And it turns out they actually won't work. So I'm getting rid of that entire box of hand warmers that I've had since apparently 2014 or earlier. And I ordered some more hand warmers off Amazon that should be coming in the mail. So that way I'll have like fresh, non-expired hand warmers with me at the beginning of the trail should I need to use one. All right, next thing I learned is that my sleeping bag liner actually works really well. When I bought it, I wasn't sure if it was just like a marketing gimmick or something. You know, it's a really thin piece of fabric, and I wasn't sure how it was going to really add 14 degrees of warmth to my sleeping bag at night, but I do think that it helped. And obviously I can't say for sure how much it helped or how much, you know, degrees it added to the warmth of my sleeping bag. But I can say that it was at least nice to be able to pull up over my face and over my head while I slept, because I do only have a quilt, so the quilt only comes to here unless, you know, like I curl up down underneath it. So it was nice to have that to pull up over my face and head to kind of try to keep that warm and prevent any air drafts from blowing in and you know, hitting my face. So it was nice. I would highly recommend it to anyone who is backpacking or hiking the AT and anticipating cold nights to have a sleeping bag liner. Also, another perk of it is that it will help keep my sleeping bag a little bit cleaner. Because that liner is going to be what gets dirty first if I'm using it. The next thing I learned is that the addition of my camp mug to my gear was a great choice. This is, I think it's by GSI or something like that. Yeah, GSI Outdoors. I picked it up at REI a few weeks ago, just prior to my Dolly Sods Shakedown. And I'm really glad I did because I didn't think that I would need it, but it's really nice to have a hot beverage when it's really cold outside. So you saw in my video when I woke up on the morning of day 2, I was enjoying just some hot cocoa to warm my body up. And I'm ultimately really glad that I had this mug to be able to make hot cocoa in. So good purchase. I think it is less than 2 ounces, so it's not adding that much weight, and I think it's totally worth it. Next thing is that I need to figure out the sleeping pad quilt straps on my sleeping quilt. So when I camped overnight at Dolly Sods, they only used one sleeping pad attachment strap to attach it to my pad, and it was kind of down in my middle back is where that attachment was to my pad. And what that resulted in is a lot of air drafts coming in at my shoulders and upper back because my sleeping quilt was just like open right there. And I realized with that I think I need to have 2 sleeping pad straps on my quilt to hold my pad down more effectively in cold temperatures. So luckily I already had a spare strap that I was just bringing along as a just in case my other one broke. But what I did, my sleeping bag pad is actually just right up here, still drying out 3 weeks later. But I put on the second strap the next loops up, so it'll be strapped to my sleeping pad right at my shoulders, and that should help prevent the drafts coming in there. So yeah, I think that'll help a lot Fingers crossed that that's the case, because I don't think I'm going to get to try this out again before I actually get on the AT. All right, next thing, and this is sort of the final thing that I wanted to talk about, is that I do really like having a sit pad with me. So on my previous Shakedown hike in the Shenandoahs, I only had my sleeping pad. I had no sit pad or anything like that. I would just find a good rock or log to sit on and call it a day. But this time I actually brought this with the intention of using it as a second sleeping pad. This is the Nemo Switchback foldable egg crate sleeping pad that I actually cut in half, thinking that I would just add it for a little extra warmth under my core while I slept, which I did do. But it was great because I also used it as a sit pad, you know, in the morning when I was getting ready and getting my shoes on. I just sat down on it. It was nice because, you know, it was snowy and the ground and rocks were all wet, so it helped keep my butt dry. I also used it as a knee pad in my tent when I was rolling up my sleeping pad in the morning, because there were some like rocky sections underneath my tent, so it kept my knees from getting bruised. And I also used it to lay stuff out on while I was packing up to keep them dry. So like I would put my jacket on here if it wasn't ready to go in my pack yet, but I needed to get it out of my tent. I would just, you know, I laid this out and just used it as somewhere to put stuff and keep them dry and clean from dirt or mud or whatever. So I really like having this. I am definitely going to bring it along, and I think it'll be really useful. Sort of along those lines, I did also buy the Gossamer Gear 1/8 inch sleeping pad, that foam thin sleeping pad that they sell that everyone raves about. This guy right here. I bought it. You know, it was only like 20 bucks. I don't know for sure that I'm going to use it or bring it. I don't think I'm going to bring it to start the trail with, because it's not going to do me much good. But I might swap that Nemo out at some point with something a little lighter and thinner. But we'll see. I figured if I have it and I don't use it, ultimately, like I said, it was only 20 bucks, so it's not a whole lot of money lost. But at least I have it in case I decide I need it. That's the general rundown of the things that I learned on my Shakedown hikes. Like I said, I won't be doing any more Shakedown backpacking trips, I don't think. I'll probably get out and hike here and there throughout the winter like I usually do. But I don't think I'm going to be doing any backpacking. But who knows? Maybe I'll find a weekend that I can get out just somewhere local here in PA. I'm getting excited. It's coming quickly, you know, the countdown is on and the days are just dropping fast on my little countdown calendar. So I'm getting excited to get out there. I'm excited for everyone who's starting in January to start. I know there's a couple of people that are YouTubing that are starting in January, and I'm excited to start following along with them, and the people who are starting before me to start seeing their videos come out. And I can't wait to bring you all along on my journey and share everything with you. And yeah, I just can't believe that it's already like almost here. I'm super pumped, and also terrified and nervous and anxious and like every possible emotion all rolled up in one. But that's my video. Those are the things I've learned. Feel free to drop any questions you might have below, or any tips that you might have related to anything that I've said. If you aren't subscribed and don't have notifications turned on, please do so. Yeah, I'll catch you guys next time on the next video. I don't know what that's going to be yet or when that's going to be. All right, see ya. Bye.